What is the worst decision you made as a teenager? Story 1. I made a joke about assassinating George Bush on MySpace in 10th grade. It was a complete joke. I was and still am a fan of Dubia. Nevertheless, my father got a call from the FBI and I had to come in and talk to some people about what I put on the internet. It was terrifying, mostly because I was scared they were going to tell my dad about all the gay I visited on his computer, but looking back that probably wasn't on their agenda. Story 2. I rode in the bed of a truck. We had gotten out of school and my friend and I were walking to our cars. We parked at a friend's house a couple streets from the school. A buddy of ours pulled up and asked if we wanted a ride. And I said no because normally I would never ride in the back of a truck, but my friend climbed in so I did too. We made it to the end of the street and started making a turn onto the highway. No more than 30 seconds after getting in, when we were T-boned, the truck did a 180 and I flew out and landed on my head on asphalt, broke my C5 vertebrae, had to wear a neck brace for 7 months, had my neck fused a year later, and did tons of physical therapy. All because I rode in the back of a truck for half a minute. Story 3. All my friends know my username anyway. I was 15 at the time, hadn't known about yet, and the only I saw was my mom's accidentally. About a week after that happened, me and my then GF are making out on the sofa. Parents aren't home, jackpot, right wrong. As things get steamy, she takes her top off. Unaware of what to do, and the horrors of my mom still fresh in my mind's eye, I ask her to put her shirt on. 6 months later when we break up, young love, she tells everyone. I managed to cover myself by saying my parents were coming home, screaming at the screen while using both guns to play the Area 51 game at a truck stop off Interstate 57. After snorting cocaine for the second time. Story 4. Being lame. I didn't really start to be social and enjoy life until my senior year in high school. From ages 13 to 17 I was just a boring guy who sat inside and played his MMO all day long. No girlfriends, no friends, no going out, no exercise, nothing. I don't know how I didn't do anything about it sooner. Story 5. Half of the comments are along the lines of didn't work hard enough, only thought about partying, now without a job. The other half studied too much, didn't have a social life, now without friends. What do I choose? Story 6. Throwaway. Cutting myself. I have learned to handle my problems through therapy and medication, but now more than 10 years later after I stopped, I still have disgusting, large scars from my wrists to my elbows that people also find equally disgusting. I can't date anyone because the scars scare them off. Often, strangers point them out rudely. Yes, it's my fault and I wish to God I could afford surgery to fade the scars so people can see me as normal. Cutting is so lame, especially when you're a real adult. Please don't do it. Story 7. I latched onto and obsessed about one girl for far too long. When it was really clear she wasn't into me, I may have passed up other opportunities while having my blinders on too. We were both in the same PE. Physical education gym class, and every Friday we would run the mile and track our times, and in the second half of the year, I was the fastest runner in our class, which apparently impressed some classmates, unbeknownst to me. All the guys would run at the same time, then all the girls would run at the same time, so half the class was in the bleachers watching the other half run at all times. At the end of the year, this girl wrote in my yearbook, "Did you know that some of the girls sit around in the bleachers and talk about your miles times, whatever?" Story 8. Being too self-conscious to go out and have fun, dating the same guy all throughout high school instead of trying new things, procrastinating so much that I got really average grades, not getting a job so I could buy a car, not learning to drive. Story 9. Got caught drinking at a company Christmas party when I was 18, was a server at Outback making roughly $700 a week while going to school, got fired, didn't know what to do so I joined the military, now I'm back in Afghanistan, again. Story 10. I am still a teenager and I am reading these stories from others to help give me advice for my future, though to contribute, I have not done much yet. The worst thing I did was cramming. I got so used to it that until now, I let my homework pile up. And when the deadline is coming, I actually wait for the latest possible time to do the homework and end up sleeping late, yep, every time. Story 11. Edit. I have noticed I'm getting a few messages about this. I implore you, if you think your little sister is using Reddit, check the username. Also Matt, just skip this comment, pretend it never happened. If you tell any of our mutual friends, I might let slip about you searching for on YouTube. When I was about 17, I got a nipple piercing. From a guy in the back of a van. For 10, that was not my smartest moment. Story 12. I didn't go see my grandpa in the hospital. It didn't even occur to me that he wouldn't be okay and my friends just seemed so important. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. Story 13. While I was in high school, I used to smoke marijuana frequently. Skip ahead a couple of years. I move in with my dad who I had just met months prior and am going to a new school. I decided to buy some weed and smoke that to relieve some of the stress I was having. It had a very negative effect on me and I experienced some kind of blackout panic attack. I woke up in the nurse's office with no clue how I got there and paramedics all around me. Skip ahead later I ended up dropping out of school because of the panic disorder I developed. Now I can't go around any kind of smoke. It triggers the blackouts. I frequently have miniature attacks. I convinced myself the weed was laced with something. So a few years later I decided to try it again. I was quite wrong. I have a reaction to it, and a bad one, woke up in the hospital for a second time. Story 14. Not taking advantage of it. Instead of chasing tail and getting to a good college, I played video games, nerded out with friends, and kept my V card. Besides that, I really wish I would have joined the Navy when I had planned to join. I'd be out right about now and am now considering that option again. Story 15 Getting engaged. Fortunately, I realized my mistake before the knot was tied. But still, the breakup would have been so much less traumatic if I hadn't had to return a ring and a dress. Story 16 Dating one of my best friends. Ended terribly. Lost someone who was a good friend at one point. Put up with for longer than I wanted to. On the bright side, I learned more about myself and won't make that mistake again. Story 17 No trying out for the football team. Is like a brotherhood, and I bet I would have released a lot of teenage angst either knocking people down or getting some brain damage. I let my depression get in the way of my education. I never told my parents. I'm sure they would have helped me, which in turn could have helped my grades. Oh well, CS get degrees edit a word. Story 18 Worst decision I made as a teenager was to start smoking cigarettes. I started the summer between my 8th grade and freshman year, when I was 13 years old. Quit when I was 30, kinda. Story 19 Not wearing a condom. I got lucky, no kids and no diseases, but I still wonder if I might have a kid I don't know about. And if I don't, it was just because of dumb luck. I did nothing to protect myself from STDs or knocking someone up, and I would anyone who'd hold still, stupid. Story 20 I didn't care about college. I'm still 19, but I can already see how stupid that was of me. I should have studied, I should have tried. I'm always telling myself I'm not smart enough, to the point I actually believe it, but I've got no motivation to do any job in the world. I have no motivation to go to college. I wish someone would take over my actions for a day and force me to go to college because I want to be able to do something in my life other than bus table in a nursing home dining room. I feel like I've wasted every ounce of potential I have, but I still can't feel shitty enough about my situation to actually do something about it me. As a teenager, this thread is, really useful 50 I worked too hard 50 I didn't work hard enough really clears right up. Story 21 Dropping out of high school, 8 years later, still confined to dead-end jobs, only just starting to scrape my way out of poverty. I eat at least once a day now. That's nice. I was a straight A student. I could have been anything I wanted, had I set my mind to it. I have no words to express the regret. Story 22 Ignoring the advice and help offered by my mum in regards to eating healthy and exercising. Years of bad posture, zero fitness and horrible diet take a long time to correct. Story 23 It's more about what I didn't do. I didn't make an effort to have friends, lose weight or date. I just assumed it would all come to me and just happen, but nothing did. I'm very pleased with all the traveling I did though, road trips and stuff. Story 24 Playing too many video games and not doing well in school. I successfully had no social life and no job opportunities once I left school. I should have really listened to my parents. But hey, what the would they know, right? I was a teenager, I knew everything. Story 25 Eating the way I did. I can't blame it on genetics. Even though both of my parents were overweight, my brother chose to eat better and exercise regularly. I was just lazy. He'd still choose to eat the bad food. But when he did, he knew that he had to work it off. He's a very healthy guy to this day. Now I'm almost 30 and just getting to the point where I'm sticking with a healthy diet and plenty of exercise. And recently, I had the opportunity to eat some of that pre-packaged, processed food and fast food. It doesn't even taste that good. My health, thankfully, has not failed me with the exception of a broken vertebra and fibromyalgia, but I no longer want to lead that life. I'm paying the price for my bad choices and laziness, and for the love of God, no plugs for keto or paleo or whatever. If you're on those diets, I'm glad it works for you, but I've got this. Story 26 Wasting my time being fat and not making out with guys. Well, I'm still fat now, but at least I recognized it at the ripe age of 19, and am doing something about it. Story 27 I regret the time spent on not studying while in school, scraped by really the minimum to get a general degree. Studying comes really easy to me, but if I'm not interested in the material, I have no motivation. I think my average was a 6, 2 out of 10. Everything above the minimum was a wasted effort. Now I am learning to paint cars in school, and after the first semester I got a 9, 9, 9, 9, 8, 8 grades, out of 10. Being interested makes all the difference. Can't wait for summer to be over, haha. It's quite the opposite from what my views on school were. I might go to university sometime in the future, but for now I am loving it. Story 28 Didn't bother learning how to study through high school because last-minute assignments always got me A's and BS anyway. My procrastination was constantly rewarded, and now that I'm in university I can't break out of it. I know it's something a lot of people struggle with, but I feel like the only person in my course who has to deal with it at the moment. Planning on finally going to one of those how to study classes my library puts on next semester though. Hopefully it's not too late to fix the way my brain works. Story 29 I focused all my time in high school thinking about smoking weed, drinking, and partying with everyone that I neglected my sick mother, who died a few years ago. I was the most narcissistic piece of, and now I can't apologize for all the things I've done. I wish I could have shown her that the life I was living is not the life I've chosen. Story 30 Not having fun. A lot of family issues started happening when I was a teenager, and I moved around a lot, so I didn't really have any friends and stopped trying to make new ones. Story 31 Piercing my tongue. I saw it as a way to look cool and rebel. Nope, chomped down on that so many times that has caused major damage to my teeth. One time I chomped down on it and cracked not one, but 2 teeth down to their roots. There was no way to save them, so I am missing 2 teeth. Thankfully they are further back so you can't really tell. Then teeth on the bottom were damaged but saved by root canals, and actually Monday on of the teeth with a root canal got an abscess, so they had to remove the root and put in a bone graft. Don't pierce your tongue, kids. I don't even think it's cool anymore like it was in the 90s. But if it is, don't do it. Story 32. The worst decision I made as a teenager was sticking with a group of friends who were jerks to me and made me feel terrible because I was too afraid to branch out and hang out with other people. Story 33. So far, failing high school, being labeled as a child genius that needs to apply themselves more often lead to me having an overinflated ego, and no motivation to try. Overall, I'm pretty up, and I hate it. Story 34. My worst decision was not making decisions. I was the socially anxious wallflower who never joined any clubs or did anything except go home every day after school to play on the computer. Story 35. Giving up on a friend that was severely depressed. I was there for him through a lot, and then I had a rough day at work when he called me and I ignored the call, went to go take a shower, and then I come back to my phone and have a voicemail from that friend saying they needed someone, didn't think much of it, went to sleep. Called that friend the next morning, no answer, called his house, dad answers crying, said my friend had hung himself. I still hear that voicemail and wake up from nightmares of it playing over and over in my head. Story 36. Nothing, that was it. The sheer amount of all I did is staggering. There wasn't any one thing it was a glorious combination of unfortunate circumstances and me not knowing how to get out of them. Story 37. Not necessarily the worst, but I had a phase when I have been wearing baggy clothes, shirts few sizes too big and wide pants. Besides the shame I feel for wearing these, I have lost a bit of money because I don't want to wear them although they still fit me. Story 38. I didn't start lifting. Every day I think about what my physique would look like now if I had just used my potential when I was 18 to start training while my growth hormones are peaking through the roof. I could have been the next Jeff Side by now. Story 39. Not learning a trade in high school. There was a technical component to my high school, and therefore not having an idea of how to fix around the house today. Story 40. I did go out and stuff, but I never made an effort to go exercise. When I started out of school it changed everything: how I look, how I feel, and my state of health. Story 41. Not being upfront with the girls I was interested in. I was so afraid of rejection that I never tried, and instead dated girls I didn't really like. So there you have it, my big regret. If you're a teenager and reading this, don't be afraid to go after the one you want. You'll never regret having tried. Story 42. Wiping my on the walls. From the ages of 14 to 16, I wasn't smart enough to get a rag, so I let it loose on the floor and the walls. Now I'm 18 and my parents think there is a honeycomb in my ceiling dripping wax down my walls. Got him dumb. Story 43. I pierced my own nose. You read that right. A sewing needle, lighter, hydrogen peroxide, and 4 hours of tears from my right eye side of nose. I pierced later. The deed was done. Glad I didn't get a staph infection, or any infection at all. Story 44. Not knowing who I was, though I suppose we're all guilty of that. I thought I'd be goth, like metal, and hang out around people who didn't actually like me very much. I thought they were the crowd I should be a part of. I should have just been a loner. Story 45. I became the laziest on the planet about a quarter way through senior year, and ended up failing a ton of classes and lost my eligibility to graduate. I was 18, so I ended up going to adult end and then community and a 4-year college still, but it remains to be the stupidest decision of my life to just around and do nothing during a really critical time of my schooling. Story 46. Botching my senior year by not studying and skipping classes. I was an honor student throughout all of high school until my last year. I was just getting by, handing things in late, not studying for anything. Those habits carried into university. Story 47. When I was 13, a friend and I were playing with his pellet rifle. We were doing pretty harmless things like shooting at birds, inanimate objects, etc. At one point, I pointed the rifle at him like I was going to shoot. None too pleased, he pulled the gun away from me, pointed it at me, and pulled the trigger. Prior to this we both believed it was unloaded, but it wasn't. The pellet hit my bottom lip, rolled it over one of my lower incisors which punctured it, and then entered my tongue and traveled down the tongue and exited in my throat. At the hospital, they did all sorts of x-rays and scans and found out that the pellet was embedded in my neck less than a centimeter from my carotid artery. They decided that any surgery to remove it would leave me with a 50 chance of surviving surgery. Needless to say, we opted not to have the surgery, and as a result I had to have lead tests for 5 years to ensure I did not get lead poisoning. Story 48. Probably not realizing that it's better for everyone to just be honest. Even if you think that dragging out a breakup or stringing someone along is the best because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, that's not how it works. But teenage me didn't realize that. Yes, it sucks to reject someone straight out, but they'll get over it faster, and it'll be a lot less messy. You might actually stay friends. Also dated a lot of helpless idiots basket cases a lot longer than I should have because I kept telling myself things would get better, or that I could change them, or that the suckage of dumping them would be way worse than just staying in a shitty relationship with a person I didn't respect. Teenagers, I'll tell ya. I am 14 Italian, and instead of getting skin that tans, I got the thick, long, connected eyebrow gift. As a teen, I didn't pluck or wax my unibrow. Oh no, I made the executive decision to shave my unibrow. Unfortunately, razors for your legs' underarms are not very good at sculpting small spaces, and I ended up with half an eyebrow over each eye. Story 49. Double-edged sword of joining the military. On one side, I had been on my own since 17, broken home, and paying for school plus paying rent was tough. Military offered everything I needed. On the other, I could be so much further in my career if I kept toughing it out. Story 50. Playing high school football. I'm not a very tough guy. Despite my size, I didn't feel safe after the first couple weeks of practice, and really wanted to quit. I should have listened to that little voice, because I ended up breaking my leg in practice the week after our first game. Both bones in my lower leg, had to have a rod inserted, still have it 10 years later, and I missed a few months of school. I couldn't play any other sports for the rest of high school because the bones weren't fully healed until the following year. I tried to play basketball my senior year, but I could tell my leg wasn't ready even when my doctor cleared me. I really hate that I missed playing those other sports because I played football, and I still hate the coach and school admin for pressuring me to play. Story 51. November of senior year, I was suspended for. My friend had whipped out his iPod during math class, middle of October maybe. He and I were sort of laughing at how ridiculous it was. Some newswoman was getting railed on the news desk during the commercial break. Some girl in our class got wind of it and decided to hold on the information until such a time as we annoyed her sufficiently for her to report us. Apparently, that time was the first week of November, because Friday morning during that class we called out of class. Taken to our rooms, I went to a residential high school, and we lived in what was formerly a college dorm and made to grab our laptops. They brought us down to the office of our tech guy, and he sifted through our computers. My friend was first. He found pirated movies, but since that wasn't the purpose of his investigation, he did not press my friend when he swore they were legit. They found no because he was doing no FAP and had cleared his history recently. I was next. They found a lot of in my history. I had 2 laptops from the school, one for work and one that I used exclusively for fapping. I could have let him investigate the other laptop, but that had naked pictures of my now ex-girlfriend, and that would have implicated her as well. They suspended me for 3 days. They said that because I had done it in class, which they actually had no evidence of, and it wasn't me anyway, that they had no choice. I don't blame them, I was stupid, but it had significant consequences. Despite the suspension, I was waitlisted at Columbia University. That leads me to believe that, without the suspension, I might have gotten in. I still got a substantial scholarship, full tuition to a different university. They did not know when they awarded me the scholarship that I had been suspended, but I was forced to tell them. Luckily, my high school administration was really great about the whole thing and vouched for me, which allowed me to keep the scholarship. TLDR, suspended for. Consequences sucked. Story 52. I regret not being able to take better control of the vehicle after my dad passed out at the wheel. We were driving home and cutting through neighborhoods. My dad took a hit of his inhaler and passed out cold right as we were coming down a steep hill. I grabbed at the wheel, overcorrected, and ended up careening us into a very large tree at about 45 miles per hour. We hit on the driver's side on the doors. My dad was in the driver's seat, my brother behind him, me in the passenger seat, and a family friend behind me. Everyone in the car was unconscious after the collision except me. It was night, and there was no one else on the road. I was scared shitless. I thought everyone was dead. Luckily, everyone survived. My dad punctured a lung and was pretty beaten up. My brother got the worst of it. He broken his hip, and part of the door broke off and was jammed into his calf. Our family friend also broke her hip. I had only a couple of scratches. I feel partially responsible for not being able to avoid such a blatant obstacle as a tree, even though I know I shouldn't. The fact that I ended up being fine only worsened the feeling. Now everyone who was in the wreck is okay and have been fully recovered for years. But I know that they wouldn't have had to go through all that pain, and our family wouldn't have had to pay all of those hospital bills that led to family hardships if I had just been able to control the situation better. Story 53. Putting all of my love into someone who wasn't worth it in the end. He was in boot camp around the end of my senior year, and I was more excited about his graduation than my own. He broke up with me a few days after he graduated, so I just felt like it was such a waste. I wish I had been more excited about my own achievements than his. Story 54. This one time I was home alone for a weekend. My parents had gone away for a cruise or something. I've never been the most social person, and of course staying at home can get boring. I remember looking to my right at one point in the weekend, seeing my family's vacuum and deciding, I am going to that. And that is how I got my stuck in a vacuum cleaner for 4 hours. Story 55. Trusting in with my painkillers in school because I was afraid of getting searched. Later that day that went to the principal's office and handed him my pills and told him they were mine. I got suspended for a month. He really me over. I get pissed thinking about the situation and how a human gets joy and pleasure out of people's lives over. Story 56. Drinking and getting an underage. Screwed me over for a better part of a year, and since I got it when I was 19, I still have to deal with it. I can provide the story for any who are interested. Story 57. I ran away to Mexico. I was 17, junior in high school. I had found a wallet and used the credit card in it numerous times. A friend who I bought stuff with said police came to his door asking about me. So what does any 17-year-old with $1,000 in his bank account do? Run to Mexico. I brought my cash and my guitar. Went to school the next morning to tell friends bye. For some reason my friend Corey decides he wants to go too. He had no real reason except he didn't want me to go alone. We set out from Louisville, Kentucky with MapQuest directions. This was way before Google Maps and way before smartphones. We had a little less than an ounce of weed and a gram of black rock opium we got from one of my friend's brothers. We smoked the whole way down. We drove straight there. Took about 2.5 days. I was 10 minutes away from the border when my car just stops. It wouldn't start. I was in Laredo, Texas. Within 2 minutes someone stops and asks if we need a push. We took the offer and had my car pushed to a mechanic. He tells me it's just my distributor cap and will cost about $80. We asked if we could sleep in the car on their property, and they agreed. Well, as soon as they close we take off without paying. I quickly got a job working at a pizza place called Sal's Pizza. Started right away, no resume, no ID, nothing. Well, long story short, Corey couldn't do it, he was scared. So I called my mom and she got his mom on the phone with a three-way call. I was the normal little hole I was as a teen while Corey did something much different. He gets on the phone and cries out, "Mommy." I messed up, bawling his eyes out. They didn't want me to drive back. Corey's mom worked for Greyhound, so she got us tickets home. My mom had my grandpa take a bus down to Texas and got my car and drove it back. On the way back he gets stopped at a roadblock and the K9s go crazy on my car. They pull him out and he says he yelled it's my grandson's car, my grandson's. He told them the whole story and they let him go after not finding any drugs. I came home and mom kicked me out. So I moved in with a friend at 17 years old. That by far was my craziest thing I did as a teen. I'm now 29. Story 58, going to a $40,000 a year college when I could have gotten a just as good if not better education from the $15,000 a year state school. I'm 24 and I live with my parents. Student loans are not fun. Story 59, when we were both 14 my friend gave me a tattoo in her bedroom with a tattoo gun she bought off eBay. I wanted a peace sign. I got a Mercedes-Benz sign. It's about the size of my palm on my outer upper thigh. Story 60, didn't listen to the commercials and went online without my parents' permission. Sucked me in like a supermassive black hole. Edit, still haven't left. Story 61, when I was in 9th grade, I made a joke about killing one of the administrators for not giving us a snow day. I thought it was fine, but later I got a call down to the principal's office. I went down there without knowing what was happening. But eventually I remembered. Eventually I was called into the office. I walked in and saw all three of the school's principals. Two administrators, not ones who I made joke about, but that wasn't bad at all. I saw two detectives from the city police. And I pretty much my pants. They said that if I was prosecuted, I could be on probation for a year, and constantly have to check in with a local officer. To put the cherry on top, the administrators told me that I was probably going to get either a long-term suspension or expulsion. I broke down and cried. I was 13. After everything got sorted out and I wrote apology letters and everything, I ended up getting suspended for 10 days and got no punishment from the police. Story 62, not going to college for music. I was good at playing trumpet, drums, and electric bass. But there was always this fat thought in my head that I would never be able to provide financially for a family in the future with a career in music comp. Instead I went against my music teacher's wishes, a guy who worked hard getting his doctorate in music theory. Now I'm going to a college that barely passed accreditation, going after a useless degree that won't even be valued as a paperweight. Busting my as a package handler at FedEx just to eat and pay this debt collector so I can attend classes in the fall because financial aid has given me the middle finger since freshman year. Story 63, I thought it would be fun to scan money, print it off, and carry it in my wallet. My friend and I even crumpled it up a bit to make it look used. If you weren't holding it in your hands, it looked real. The aforementioned friend decided to share with some guys I didn't know very well. They took a couple fake 20s and bought junk food. The clerk instantly knew the bills were fake and called the cops immediately after. It ended up coming full circle to me. Basically, I got in a lot from my parents, my peers, and the cops. The cops ended up dropping it, realizing that it was just a teenager screwing around with a relatively new technology. Before that happened though, I was pretty sure my life was ruined and I was going to youth prison. TLDR made counterfeit money with a scanner printer. Money got passed around. Cops showed up and put the fear of God into me. Story 64, taking E. It felt so good I decided that's all I was going to do for the rest of my life. But of course before long I found myself in a fit of depression and memory loss that lasted well into my 20s, preventing me from doing anything useful with my life. Story 65, basically not taking any chances or putting myself out there at all. I only had one girlfriend in high school and that was basically set up by my mom. Her mom worked with my mom and needed a date to homecoming at a different school. I only had like one consistent friend who I'm still friends with to this day, but never really branched out and tried to meet new people. I never joined any clubs or organizations. I never asked anyone in my classes if they wanted to hang out or go out on a date if they were a girl I liked. I just sat there quietly, paid attention to the teacher, and went home. Most of what my high school life consisted of was doing homework, surfing the internet as it was back in the mid-90s, and playing video games or watching movies. I never really went out or did anything except for that 3 months I had the aforementioned girlfriend. Story 66, believing that I had real friends and blowing off my actual real friends. I quit things I never should have quit to impress them. They never invited me to anything and talked about me constantly behind my back. When I moved away they started the rumor that I had died and no one went to my funeral, not to make people feel guilty but to clarify that they weren't really my friends. I hate myself for that decision. Story 67, right after high school I wanted to join the military, but all my friends and family wanted me to go to a 4-year university instead. Long story short, I went to college. But I wasn't even close to a good student and after 2 semesters dropped out and moved back home. I wound up in quite a bit of debt and had to work like crazy to pay it off. 6 months later I joined the Marines and have since gone back to school and I am now an excellent student. TLDR, I wasn't ready for college but went anyway. Story 68, that I've stopped working out. I was in prime physical condition, 10-15 HA week of training, then I went to high school and was like, well, I have to study. And I didn't study, didn't train, got fat and weak, and it's that much harder to find time to work out now. Also, I could have easily be a recognized figure in my discipline by now. I also really hate that my parents didn't push me towards anything. I envy kids that were signed up to music schools. Maybe a 5 of those I know continued music career. The rest is glad to be able to playsing. Story 69. Breaking and entering an abandoned school building. We usually went one way, never got caught since lots of other people have gone that way and destroyed all the security camera sensors. The day we choose the other entrance I knew something bad was happening. Ended up only with 48 hours community service, but I have no idea if that's forever on my record or not. Story 70. I was very self-conscious about what people thought of me. I also was pretty scrawny-gawky and that didn't help. Granted, I had severe social anxiety, but I wish I had addressed that earlier. I also should have lifted weights and tried to fill out some. College was great because I got out of my shell, grew in size some and became what I suppose you could call popular. But high school was, most HS kids don't understand what life is like when trying to approach a group of people makes your throat close up and your palms get all clammy. My lack of self-confidence led me to have a pretty shitty girlfriend who I spent all my time doting on, instead of enjoying being a typical stupid 16 to 18 years old. Today I am very outgoing and would be described as a type A personality, but I still and always will identify with that shy kid in the corner.